Welcome to Real Time Recorded. ZS and I will be covering a lot of topics, partly because we skipped last week. There was no news last week. Were you watching? Did you watch the elections? Yes.
There was an election?
Yeah, there
I think
was
I
an
heard about
election.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
The week
still
long
going on.
Yeah.
So there was no news last week, but there's quite a bit of news this week, and I don't know what we're going to talk about here. Let's start off with Wall Street. I wrote in my newsletter for October what a crappy month October was. Everything, fires, pandemic, everything was doom and gloom. All of a sudden, there's a potential vaccine out on for the pandemic, for the COVID. The election is behind us, and everything is looking so much better. We have like a perfect storm kind of forming on Wall Street. You got low interest rates. You've got expected economic growth with the pandemic kind of behind us, or nowhere near behind us, but possibly behind us. You got additional stimulus possibly in the pipeline. You've got the split government, which is kind of strange, but the Wall Street likes split government because that means there's not going to be any big changes. So all of a sudden, there's like this big pressure lifted. What do you think, Zias?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of an overly Pollyannish view. I think a lot of the rhetoric around the economy being so strong is driven by a handful of companies. If you look at the Dow, it doesn't matter what Caterpillar and companies like that do. It's driven by Apple and Amazon and companies like that. They're so overweighted now as part of that it gives us a false sense. I know that there was a lot of optimism of the vaccine, and it was interesting to see the UCAS vendors and the CCAS vendors get crushed, right? I think Zoom's off a couple $100 now a share based on the pandemic, and I actually think it creates a good buying opportunity if you are into those kind of stocks. So I don't see the usage of these things slowing down at all, right? I think what's going to happen is we're going to have more people working in more places, and that actually drives up the need for these tools.
I completely agree. I understand like why cruise ship stocks went up and why airlines went up, or even AMC went up, because those things are all running or not running at half capacity or lower, and so the idea of all of a sudden having airline passengers or cruise passengers makes the stock go up. But the idea that people are going to stop this remote meeting thing doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So but let's get into some individual stocks. So Cisco reported their results most recently. They actually had some interesting results. It's crazy times during the pandemic. There's no question about it. But the WebEx collaboration group is doing pretty well. They actually announced that they had 600 million participants on WebEx last month, which is a big number, and more importantly, double from what they had back in March. And so that March was a big number. So they're still seeing some pretty strong growth in the WebEx team. They're seeing a lot more conversion toward software services. They're seeing they saw double-digit growth toward deferred product revenue, which means long-term subscriptions. So I would say all in all, Cisco Collab is getting their stride back. They got their new leadership, and they got WebEx One coming up next month, which I expect will have a bunch of interesting announcements. Yes, what are your thoughts on Cisco?
Well, Cisco is an interesting company. The stock was up off kind of muted expectations, right? The overall applications group was down this quarter, as was infrastructure. What kind of carried the quarter were services, and security was up big time. But I do think, to your point, WebEx is getting some of its swagger back. I think it's still that tried and trusted platform for large enterprises. I am expecting to see some big announcements of WebEx One. I don't know what they are. You and I are speaking at it though, so obviously it's going to be a great event.
That'll be the high point.
Yeah, well, I feel bad for Amal Cooney in that we're going to probably overshadow her, but I think she's been used to that. I do expect to see Cisco though be more aggressive in the collab space. I've heard that in some ways the company's almost got a blank check now to go what they need to do to compete better in that space. G2 and Java have talked about this vision of making collab, virtual meetings 10x better than in person, and that requires a lot of investment. And so I actually think when we look back at this time, the rise of Zoom will have been good for Cisco because it created a really tough competitor that they haven't ever had to deal with this in the space. I mean, even Microsoft, you could argue, wins not because of product features, just because of licensing, right? So this sharpens Cisco's pencil, and I think we're going to see a very, very different WebEx group come 2021. I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive, and I think that's good for the industry because they'll push along a lot of other people with it. So we had other companies announced this quarter too. We had Ring, Poly, Vonage. Any of those appeal to you?
Let's talk about Vonage. Actually, Vonage was really surprising because I you sometimes just bang your head with Wall Street, but they announced that they want to get out of the consumer business, and Wall Street got all excited about that. Yeah. But duh, I mean, they've been talking about getting out of the consumer business for, I don't know, 5-10 years, something like that. And it's really more the other way around. The consumers are kind of getting out of the Vonage business, but whatever. They sounds like they're going to sell that business off. They've got a strategic committee looking at different options to get rid of the consumer business. Actually, personally, I think that's kind of a mistake. I think one of the things that that Zoom taught us this year during the pandemic is leveraging that consumer business could really be good. That's why they've done so well in video. The two consumer and business have kind of fed each other. But Vonage is definitely going to get out of the consumer space, and they're focusing on business. They've been, as they have for a while. They think that business unit might sell for around $300 million, so that'll be a nice payment for it. Other thing in their announcement was their video APIs, and they acquired TalkBox. What was it, a year or two ago? I can't remember when it was.
Years ago, I think, yeah.
But TalkBox was known for its video APIs. I mean, they were kind of the pioneer of that category, kind of ahead of Twilio, kind of ahead of everybody. I think they were really early in that video API area. And during the pandemic, that's really grown. They reported 143% year-over-year growth in video API usage, and that's just really going to take off for them, I think. So a lot of things are coming together. We got their new CEO. That was their first quarterly briefing for the new CEO, and so it's nice to hear from Rory. And I thought it was a pretty upbeat quarter. Yes.
Yeah, I think Vonage remains one of the more undervalued UCaaS vendors on Wall Street. I think they, when you look at the revenue, I mean they're on par with Ring, and as far as revenue goes, but their market cap's way lower. I think they are a misunderstood story. You could argue that they're the only UCaaS vendor that has CCaaS, UCaaS, CPaaS all tied to a single platform. In fact, they built their whole Vonage. The whole Vonage business platform on Nexmo.
Yeah.
Right. And so it is video centric, and they're not just a little bit ahead on video APIs, they're way ahead. That was a great acquisition for them. I think the change of CEO was good. I really liked Alan Mazarek. I was a big fan of his, but different times call for different CEOs. And Alan was, came from Google. He was a good vision guy. He got rid of that BroadSoft mess they had in the background. In the back end, and they put their own platform together. And now Rory, from what I've heard, he is kind of out of an execution machine. So he should step on the gas here. What they haven't done well is do a lot of cross sales. So you haven't seen a lot of Nexmo sales tied to CCaaS sales, tied to UCaaS sales. And that's something, if they could leverage, could be a big competitive differentiator for them. I also think that at this relative valuation, though, I think they're a good acquisition target. If I was somebody like Verizon and I wanted in the space more, you bought Blue Jean, but you don't have the rest of the stack, this would give it to you. Or even Ring, right? If Ring wants in the contact center space, Vlad's got this world domination in mind, right? Give him a bigger user base and gives them CCaaS, gives them CPaaS, right? And we talked about on our last RTR, the platformization of this space, right? And so if indeed the world's going platform, then Vonage is in a good space because of Nexmo.
Zeus, I noticed on Twitter, you seemed a little excited about Snapchat buying Voka AI. Why did that excite you?
Yeah, I saw that report on TechCrunch, and I thought that was just kind of an interesting buy. It's the Voka AI, for those who don't know it, they make virtual agents that have been sold into contact centers. So, if Five9 had bought them, or TalkDesk or Via, okay, that would make sense. But Snapchat bought them. You think, why would Snapchat want a customer care tool? And so I think it was a very interesting acquisition. I don't really have any idea what they're going to do with them. I do think, though, I know Snapchat is eyeing the B2C space, right? They want to become an advertising platform. If you could envision, if I'm a consumer and I'm talking to a business or interacting with a business through Snapchat, and I want to be able to talk to somebody about a certain product, I can use Voka AI to do that, to talk to a virtual agent. Now, with that being said, it isn't a contact center. It's not a full contact center. If I get a problem, I don't expect that to be able to solve it. But for anything that's high volume, low complexity, the virtual agent could do a great job. Like, how much is this item of clothing? How do
you got to stop taking those drugs. I don't know what's going on here, because you're way too excited about this. the reality is Snapchat doesn't know a darn thing about customer service, doesn't know a darn thing about the contact center industry, and either, in my opinion, does Voka AI, because they're trying to basically do this completely with a bot. And the AI technology may get there, not next year, not maybe in 5, probably in 10 years. And right now, it's just a waste of time. There's the idea of a completely automated bot. I can't even, get the weather prediction accurately, out of the bots I'm using. So I think it's a waste of time. I think virtual agents, as good as a human, is kind of a Snapchat fell for it, haha, we got you joke, and just I would just ignore that.
Well, first of all, as far as drugs go, you're the one in Denver, so let's just call a spade here. I think one of the things that it highlights, though, Dave, is it underscores the importance of customer experience, and even Snapchat, who deals largely with consumers, understands that. I'm not saying they're going to become a full contact center vendor, but for light customer care, I think the virtual agents do a good job, and the whole industry's headed in that direction. You may not like it because you got all those gray hairs, but that's the direction this industry is moving in, and I think Snapchat's gonna. Yeah, I don't think they'll become a contact center vendor overnight, but I think they will use this tool to change how they do customer care.
All right. Well, that wraps up episode 46 of Real Time Recorded. We'll be back next week with episode 47.
Yeah, that makes sense.